have your days been?
Yeah, not bad. Do have a bit of seem to have woken up with a bit of sciatic pain that I was trying to watch other things and yeah. What is
Yeah, sciatic's a bit challenging because it's usually the piriformis muscle in the butt. So
oh, it's definitely in the butt. It's definitely in the butt.
So there's a so there's a muscle that pretty much goes from the center of your glutes and it attaches to your sacrum. So it's a triangle shaped muscle and it attaches from your sacrum, you know, that big flat bone in your lower, you know, where your tailbone sort of hooks off there. So it attaches from there into the center of your butt and, you know.
Yeah, well, I was doing that. I can't remember the names. I do apologize. Where you were saying on your tummy and then rubbing it and then clearing and because I had some bad news from the UK, so I'm thinking possibly that might be inside. And is that a possibility? Is that
everything is a possibility? I had a client years ago from New Zealand, and she was settled well and truly here in Australia, and her mum was coming to visit. And as soon as she knew her mum was coming to visit, her sciatica started playing up. And it wasn't until it happened several times in a row that she realized that something was a pain in the butt about that whole process.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wish it was as simple as that, but I fear it's related. So, two members of the family not very well. So,
oh, darling, yeah, that sucks.
So there will be a flight very soon. Yes. So yes, you've said that. That's probably what it is.
Yeah. The last 2 days, I did say last night, you know, I've been at a live blood sort of thing with a couple of really high flyers in the live blood world. And it was really interesting. Like a couple of them were involved in our Senate inquiry here that went for 12 hours. Like she was just telling us about it. It was like a 12-hour inquiry with senators and scientists and saying, hey, whatever they're telling you, that's not what's going on. And
have you seen the slides of the live blood analysis they've done from the EMF exposure, Madonna?
Well, certainly. Well, part of the science group that I'm part of does that all the time.
Okay.
So it makes it more sticky. It makes it more coagulated. It creates more rouleau, all sorts of things. So we were doing an experiment today where we were basically like just one of the little experiments that was done on about 5 minutes, where basically one hand would be done just relaxed, and then the other hand we would pummel it and, you know, wake it up and, you know, and sort of massage it and almost to the point of pain. And I know what I was doing to David, and I know what I was doing to another chick from the UQ. She's not allowed to be known because she's a bit of a troublemaker. And, you know, and it was interesting seeing the difference in the blood, one side and the other. Like it's just very interesting. And mine, I've got to say, mine was one of the best bloods there. I was very proud of that. I don't know what that was because a lot of people are taking a lot of supplements, but the doctors there were sort of commenting. So where's everyone feeling? Ignore all of that. What a stupid way to start. So welcome to day 5, everyone. Oh my goodness gracious me. Emotional stress release points. See? Don't they come in handy sometimes? I got lost yesterday just before the live blood, and I was about to have a hissy fit in the middle of Toowong, and once again I was walking down the street and I just went, ah! And I went, okay, where is it? Hold the phone, you can do it. Follow the little blue buttons. So yes, it is amazing how often these things come in handy once we get into a bit of a habit doing them, because they really can make a difference. So with your confidence level compared to, say, before we started Monday night, compared to where you're sitting now, where are you feeling with sort of knowledge and energy and everything that we've been learning this week? Where's all that sitting? Feeling about a 4? What What? So did you start at a 4? Are you at a 4 now? Like, where were you then? Where are you now?
I was at 0 to start with.
Yep.
I reckon I'm about a 4. I obviously need to keep
Cool.
rereading and listening
Yep.
and practicing. So yeah.
Nice. Good one. Tracy, what about you?
Yeah, I still need to practice, need to keep reading my manuals again and get it back into my brain and practicing. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, but I've set up a room now here, so in my house. So
nice.
Treatment room, so I'm going to really get into it more.
Yeah. My last client today, it was funny because he made the comment that he's got a naturopath student friend of his, and she lives off grid and everything's organic and they eat their own meat and they eat their own, everything's just beautiful and they make their own kombucha and she was asking him about Reiki, and I said, why does she want to do Reiki? Why would a naturopath go to Reiki first? I said, go to kinesiology. I said, you can use it to muscle test what supplements, you can work out what herbs you can use, for doses. Anyway, it seemed odd to me that someone would go Reiki first. I suppose it's easy. Has anyone done Reiki?
Years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And
Yep.
and I obviously, I've had some amazing Reiki treatments over the years. It's just such a cool tool. But as a naturopath, I sort of think, man, I don't know where I'd be without kinesiology. I remember about 25 years ago, I was at a Gordon Dixon counselling kinesiology course, and one of the ladies in the room happened to comment to Linda and I. She happened to say, I don't know where I'd be as a naturopath without kinesiology. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, how do you know what to prescribe someone? And I said, what do you mean? And that's when Linda and I started making up all these huge lists of all our supplements and different ways of, working out what people need and getting hierarchies of supplements and all that sort of thing as well. So Chantel, you were a 1, now a 3. Awesome. Cool. Marianne, has things shifted for you? Have you got more confidence or more energy about it or more?
Yeah, I mean, it's really been interesting for me, just the interaction with people around the world has been so amazing, and just hearing that we're all kind of doing the same way, and how we sort of apply our own different slanted, which is exactly what you've been doing as well, and we're also fascinated by what you do. So it's been really nice, and I've really enjoyed the interaction.
Beautiful. Yeah, because it can be lonely, can't it, when you don't know someone in your area that is doing kinesiology, and how do you move forward to that next spot? Like I said, about my friend Linda, when the night we were talking about the Moro reflex exercise, and she, we were over there in Perth, we learnt about it. She went home, she said to this chickie, babe, yep, do this. And then the chick fell apart. What do you do? Well, she luckily rang me, and I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. Look at the power of this stuff. Not quite the answer I think she was expecting, but, that's me. And I think the power of anything that can make that sort of a change has got to be able to be used for good. But what it did is gave us a system. You give someone a Moro reflex to do. If I give you guys the Moro reflex to do, you've got to be able to pick your own energy up or say, shit, I really need to ring Madonna. Something's going on here. What can I do? I've been laid up in bed for a week. Yeah. Actually, I'll tell you another funny story. I had a guy, we'll get to the other 1 to 10s in a minute, but I had another guy who I did just thinking about etheric balancing, the old surrogate balancing. I had a chick come in once, and her boyfriend was a farmer. So he just worked his tuchus off. He was doing 12 to 15-hour days every day, and he was always running on adrenaline. And she said to me, well, wouldn't it be wonderful if he could just relax? Well, apparently that wasn't so wonderful, because we calmed his survival patterns down as a surrogate, and then he couldn't get out of bed. So his body was so used to running on adrenaline that afterwards, the next time she came and saw me, she said, that thing we did, we really shouldn't have done it. And that's when I really started. That was probably my first huge thing about permission, with surrogacy. Now, having said that, I've got some people, they will do a surrogate balance in a heartbeat for someone they love because they know someone will never agree to it. And then I just ask the higher self, is it for the highest good of this person to do this balance? And if I get a yes, And I sort of just make sure that we pick up that conscious brain at the end of it as well. And but yeah, you know, we are playing with energy. We are playing with energy then, you know, for someone who hasn't particularly said yes. So I would say be cautious, you know, definitely in my world, I'd say be cautious. Judy, where are you sitting?
Well, thanks to my family, I was about a 3 trying to like go through the books, and we were getting awesome results. So after seeing everybody and knowing you're across the world and how much that's like an awesome footprint, probably heading towards maybe a 5 or a 6, and I've got to get stuck in and get like through the other stuff we learned. Like there's the structural stuff, and there's words on there that I hand wrote at your lessons. I don't even know what they are anymore. So it's going to be
That's
interesting,
funny.
but
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
look, my son's got scoliosis. My daughter's got bulging discs, and we're investigating the Ehlers-Danlos hypermobility syndrome. We've started to see it might be through my mother's bloodline. So I really need to sort this because they're only like 24 and 22, and their world is full of too much pain, and they're really impacted with mental health and just being able to enjoy the work that they do. It's not okay for them to be hurting this much. So I have to read, I have to study. I have to.
Yeah. And the world's a very inflammatory place. So the more we can do to calm down our inflammation on a daily basis, you know, whether it's from those physical toxins in our body that we're creating ourselves, whether it's from the world around us, the water around us, the food around us, you know, we need to have these tools that we can keep bringing ourselves back into balance. And when I was chatting to Linda last night, you know, so we went out to dinner and she said, well, I'm going to swear. She said, fuck, I don't know where I'd be without kinesiology, because her daughter Isla died a year ago at 18 years old. So the amount of times this year she has picked up her own conscious brain energy, she's brought herself back into balance. She has done the amygdala work on herself to help to calm down the fight, flight, rage, anger, pain, punishment, escape, submission, freeze, all, and to pick up her feel-good hormones again. Because what a tough year losing a kid. But yeah, so that was her comment. You know, and it's
wow.
You know, and it's just being able to do anything to do that. And this is what this stuff does. Just helps keep, and if it's feeling like we're not, you know, like when we're exhausted a lot of the time, don't forget that first, second, third layer of stress. You know, the first layer is just when you're feeling a bit dumpy and you come back up, and that's okay. You know, and that might be a little balance that just makes you go, yeah, that was great. If you're running on that adrenaline, but that adrenaline taps on and there's nobody home, that's going to run out at some stage. If you're over the edge down the cliff, you've got a lot of work to do. So each time you're bringing yourself closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to equilibrium and homeostasis. Yeah. And Sean's saying in the background, he did a Reiki's master course while he was still in the Navy. So that was his way into healing. Yeah, kickstart, jumpstart. Yeah, good, good, good. Mark, where are you sort of feeling this week?
I'm coming from a place of zero knowledge.
Yes.
So probably 0-1.
Yep.
Although I have studied some alternative modalities like Reiki. But now it's definitely piquing my interest, and it's amazing how, you know, like yesterday after the call, I just went and watched a couple of YouTube videos on something completely unrelated, but there was sort of an intertwining and I don't know, sort of a synchronicity, if you like, coincidences, things like that. And I just feel like I'm being pushed in a particular direction, which is for the benefit of everybody else. Yeah. So even, you know, the is it the glabella, the thing here?
Yeah, Tracy was mentioning that. Yeah.
I was watching something on mercury toxicity, and there was a bit of a parody of the, you know, the established medical establishment, and somebody, you know, like a registered nurse said, you know, do you even know what a glabella is? And then I thought, bizarre, you know, just talking about it, and that's a word I'd never come across before yesterday. So it's all interesting, but it's, you know, I'm the kind of person that likes to know everything about everything before I've got the confidence to do anything about it. So, which is a problem. It's a bit of a problem, really. I just need to.
Well, not really, you know, and that's sort of why, if anyone ends up doing the next level, which is a competent kinesiology. It's why I've put together those little modules the way I have, so that you've got a really nice combination of tools that you can mix and match. It's sort of like you can layer anything on top of anything. The great thing about kinesiology is you just start somewhere and you just keep checking stuff. Things will either lock or they unlock. There's no confusion with it once you feel confident with your muscle testing. And if there's confusion, don't forget their body can be confused as well. It's not necessarily just because we're switching or, we're confused. Their body might not have a clue. If we're asking their body about fight or flight or pain or anxiety or stress, think about all the stuff going on in their nervous system. So if something's waffly, I just do a correction until it's feeling nice and solid. So I just sort of think, it doesn't matter. It never hurts to add energy to something that might only be 80 or 90%. In muscle test, an unlock of any muscle is considered 50% or less.
Okay.
So basically a lock doesn't necessarily mean 100%. And that's because all muscles and all organs for that matter, they're not working 100% all the time. All the time when we're walking, muscles are switching on and off. While you're sleeping, things are supposed to relax. Unless we're, say, under an operation, that's when the nervous system can go holy moly, because your unconscious brain is fully awake. You might be asleep. You might be having a good old time thinking, yeah, thank God I'm getting a few hours sleep today. But your unconscious brain's going, holy moly, what are they doing? And you can be locked into survival after that if the nervous system has not magically recovered, because it's magic if we recover amazingly after that. Imagine what the nervous system goes through during an operation. Imagine what it goes through during the car, say a car trauma or the loss of a child or the loss of a parent for that matter. But you can imagine this year, a lot of people have tried to be kind to Linda and say, oh, I know what it's like. I lost my parents. Her brain goes, you have no bloody idea. It is not the same, poor darlings. My mum died just before her daughter did, and I was very aware of that. And I didn't say, yeah, I know what you're talking about. My mum just died. Those words never escaped my lips because, because it is not the same. Eve, where are you feeling?
I think for me, it's just, I've been thinking about how, because when I trained, I only did the certificate for, and I did a bit more than a certificate for, but because it was quite a long time ago, and I've sort of gone more, obviously I've always been more in the energy and the spirit stuff, but so I've tried different things, like, I ended up, because I did my friend had a sore neck, so I did a healing with her last night over the phone, and I ended up using the celestial circuit as part of it. So I was like, oh yeah, while I'm doing this, by the way, just do this. I just added it in, right? But it was just to give her something to focus on. But I just was thinking this morning, I think for me, I'm thinking about, because especially at the moment, because I'm doing most of my sessions phone or distance, and I'm thinking, okay, I would like to master more of the self-testing so that I can incorporate to see whether I can expand a bit on, because obviously most of my healing is more trance-based and spirit-based, but and that's working really well. But I'm thinking if I want to go a bit more back into some of the technical stuff that I learned, which a lot of it I didn't master, because I realized when I was studying kinesiology that, even just muscle testing on people, you need to practice it so much to get really good at it, get confident at it. For me, I find it's a lot easier if I'm just practicing on myself with muscle testing to get confident. So if I can get confident with that, and I'm, I feel like I've got a few, different ways I can do it, and just see how that's working for me if I bring some of that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of thinking, I'd like to just, for me, just revisit, because I don't always have a lot of space in sessions to add in more stuff because there's already a lot going on. But, I'm thinking in terms of the health stuff, whether I want to, because obviously my friend had a structural thing. So we were working more energetically, and there was obviously other stuff going on. but I think I could probably, you know, even if it's testing, like if I'm doing, you know, if I'm sort of in this sort of trance space and there's this energy coming through, but even if I'm sort of, you know, doing things on my body. I think even last night I was visualizing her head getting massaged, and it reminded me of what you said about when you would just physically massage the body.
Yeah, etherically, just working. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because spirit does that on me. Like I feel that on my head a lot. And so I was sort of seeing it on my friend, and I thought, oh, it'll be really interesting to see whether I can do things on my side that the client will feel, or whether they've actually physically got to do it themselves to feel it by distance. I don't know if you've had any experience with that, because I know there are people that do distance kinesiology, but they'll get the person to hold the points or rub the points.
Yeah.
So whereas I find with the energy healing, they don't have to do anything. They can feel the healing. But with kinesiology, if I'm doing something more structural, whether I need to actually get them to do stuff. So I sort of probably need to play with that a bit.
And most of my distance healings are with people overseas. So generally I video them and then they upload it and then they watch it from a distance. So then they're watching it after the balance has already been completed. And I think I said, you know, a couple of my clients that were living in Germany, they had done maybe a year and a half energetic healings with me before they decided to come to Australia and spend a couple of weeks in my clinic and just do lots of healings. And it was funny because regularly she would wake up and say to her hubby, oh, I wish I hadn't told Madonna to work on that. I'm not feeling, you know, any charge with that this morning. There's nothing going on with that. And then they'd wake up and they'd watch the video and then they'd go, oh, that's why I'm not feeling it. That's what she worked on last night while I was asleep. So by the time they'd woken up, she'd be going, oh, I really wish I'd thought of something better to work on. That's not a problem now.
So when you do the video, what are you videoing? Is that where you video the person on the surrogate, or you mean you're videoing?
I'm either doing a surrogate or an etheric body.
And if you do an etheric body, what do you show them in the video?
I show them me working on a pretend body on the table. So it's just a empty table. So they're watching me work on, you know, and I just sort of say, oh, Jen's awake. So, you know, I literally stand up and I sort of say, okay, so this is your head, this is your feet, except it's longer, of course, and then I sort of just start my process, running the central meridian, saying, okay, brain, okay, heart. I do the switching over the heart. And then I start scanning the body the way that I would normally. So I just get my yes, no's going. Then I start literally looking at the body. I look at the feet, I look at the hips, I look at, you know, and I sort of see, right, do we need to start with something structural? Or do we need to go something like a celestial circuit? Do we need to do, you know, survival? So I just go through my little hierarchy of things. And then once something unlocks, I go, okay. So then I just start there.
Yeah. And
I just go through my process. So that's what they're getting a video of. And because I always, when I'm doing an etheric healing or a surrogate healing, we've already had a bunch of emails first. So I've got a bit of an outline about what they want to work on.
Yeah.
And even then within their outline, I always check hierarchy, you know, so I sort of say, okay, well, out of this, what's the biggest priority? And I muscle test the priority, because people always have, you know, 3 to 10 things that they want to work on. And that's cool, you know, because you can imagine you work on one thing, it can topple onto other things. You know, if someone has, how are you this morning, Jen? Good to see you.
Sorry, I slept in.
No, that's all good. We were talking about where you were on Monday before our first balance, you know, 0 to 10 compared to where you are now. Where are you sort of sitting now compared to the beginning of the week, just with general knowledge or energy or whatever?
Well, my energy, like in my body, it's waning.
Yes, it's been a long week waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
But knowledge-wise, it's been great. Like just the little tips that you've given and stuff. I'm intrigued and loving learning a little more things and like to know it a little more in depth. So it's been great, Madonna.
Awesome. That's great.
Been
Thanks.
great.
Yeah, so that's sort of what they're getting, Eve, you know, so it's sort of it's a really interesting little process for me, because, You know, we do. I have a big list. I've got it all printed out, ready to go. Actually, I'm fairly disorganized, so that's usually 2 minutes before the call. I set up my video and I just get going and I sort of see what shows up. So it's sort of like for me, and like I said, I had never done that 3 years ago. I've been doing surrogate balances for 25 years. And my first ever one actually was when I was doing Touch for Health. So you had to do the whole, all of the stacking was in the hips of the person on the table. And the way that you do surrogacy in Touch for Health is the person you are surrogating has to be touching you the whole time. So, of course, that doesn't work etherically. That doesn't work for someone in another part of the world. So I had these two little kids who were stuck twins. So in the womb, their little heads, their necks were connected. And I'm not going to tell you what the medical treatment is. In Australia, if there are stuck twins, let me tell you, it does not work well for one of those poor little darlings in 99% of cases. So these were stuck twins, so therefore they had all sorts of, their primitive reflexes were really stuck. So, you know, we've been talking about the Moro reflex. We've been talking about the little palmar reflex, you know, the sort of the suckling reflex. There's another one, the palmar reflex, when you sort of, you know, just touch the palm and people can't help but to scratch. Once again, that's about grabbing. It's about grabbing onto the boob and suckling. That's what it's about. You know, so we've got all of these primitive reflexes, and these poor little kids, they were like toe walkers. That's another primitive reflex, you know, and one of them was always, I think they were maybe, it's been a long time, but I'm guessing 3 or 4 years old, and they were little turds. And basically the parents couldn't cope, so the grandparents had moved in. So I had the mother on the table. In those days, you had to balance the mother for everything that you were going to work on for the child. So I did a full balance with the mother, and then I had the mother touch the kid. Kid would not go near the mother, so she would only work for the grandmother. So then I had to get the grandmother on, then I had to balance the grandmother out, and then the kid would let me touch. And I didn't have another solution at the time. I said, well, this is what we've got to do. So thank God I've got another solution these days. So, and really, you know, like you were saying earlier on the week, Eve, a lot of it's about intent. So really, you know, I know who I'm working on because we've had the back and forth, the emails, I've got the printout, I've got the I've got whatever information I need so that I can just energetically tap in. I always ask, am I in, am I out, you know, so I make sure I'm 100% that person with the etheric person on the table. And once I get that, I'm off.
So you should get a lock, is it? If you're using a yes or a no, or you're just...
So with me, sort of like with a lot of the girls here, you know, they like to start with it with a lock, you know, so I always start with a lock. So, and I often say, you know, because, you know, like I have big, long, busy days. So sometimes I'll just say, give me a yes, give me a no, give me a yes, give me a no. Am I in this person's body? Yes. So, you know, once again, I sort of repeat the same stuff to myself that I've, you know, that I think it's a good thing to do, because it's easy when you're busy. It's really easy just to get out of kilter. Okay, where was I going? What am I doing? Give me a yes, give me a no. Just bring yourself back to center again. There's nothing wrong with that. It only takes a second to do it. So yeah, it's much easier doing surrogate balancing these days. And it's sort of like, once again, you can sort of ask all those levels of permission for support and for help, the levels of, you can ask for consciousness to come in. Linda was actually saying last night that she's been energetically connecting with her daughter since her daughter passed, and that actually keeps her really safe on the table. But you can do the same thing with anyone who's protective. If you've got a favorite grandparent, if you've got a favorite deity, you know, if you've got a favorite, you know, whoever, you can bring anyone into the balance to keep you protected throughout the balance so that you don't take on other people's stuff, you know, for protection and guidance. And because, hey, you know, it's all energy, like we've been chatting this week.
I was testing I was saying that I would self-test with the deltoid.
Yeah.
Today I was walking and trying to self-test with a roo paw, but with my arm just hanging down, but on an angle. With the
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You know, and then test it and spindling it to see whether it would work. And it seemed to be I seem to be able to do it just having my arm down just with that angle.
Yeah, right.
Technique
And it was like a little one, or was it a big movement? You know, so the old kangaroo, yeah, so the old skippy arm, you know,
yeah,
lock and lock. Yep.
yeah. So because I figure that, you know, when you're on the table, your arm is flat against your side.
Yes.
So when you're standing, it's the same. It's still flat against your side. It's just that I'm just pushing it down with my hand rather than obviously someone else pushing it down. I mean, you can do it lying down, but I thought I'll try it standing up and just see, you know, and I thought, okay, that's another one I can do if I don't want to, because the finger one is good, but I'm like, I might get a bit tired.
Yeah, totally. I was like, someone's, yeah. And once again, Linda's nearly given herself arthritis, you know, by doing this little guy, you know, because she does 1 million of them a year. You know, during our balance, I probably do, I don't know, 200-300 of those in an hour, you know, so it ends up being a lot of, you know, which is why it's much easier for me having a real human on the table, but it's cheaper for people if they don't have a surrogate, unless they've got a friend close by. Otherwise I pay a surrogate, you know, to be the person on the table. Because a lot of my surrogates, actually, they feel most of the stuff, you know, so it's a bit of a, you know, it's a bit traumatic for them as well. So
also, I guess you've got to,
that's just how I run it.
To open your muscles here, you're also using the muscles in this other hand.
Yeah.
So
totally. Yeah.
Clear that you're testing these muscles, not these muscles, because then these ones will weaken because you're using.
Yeah, but I make sure I shake out my hands regularly through the balance, and you know, so I do all sorts of things to bring my hands back as well. Yeah. No. It's definitely locking and unlocking throughout. I just keep making sure, like before I test anything, I recheck it. Yeah. So I just do that all the time as well.
Yeah, I showed my niece the on the weekend. I tested on her. I said, "Oh, I'm going to show you something a bit magical," and I had her on her belly, and I was spindling her hamstrings, and then I was locking in the unlock, and I said, "See, when I lock it into my jaw hip circuit, now see how you can't hold your leg up," and she goes,
"Oh, that's fantastic."
Oh. And then I unlocked it, and then I was like, now it's holding up. And she just thought it was so amazing that she went and was trying to do it on my brother, because she just was like, I want to show you this magic.
Exactly. And my son, you know, because people often think that they can't do it. And I think when my son Blaze was 10, he had 3 friends who were the kids. They were all really intelligent kids, but both their parents were doctors. So in Blaze's mind, he must have had this in his mind that if he was able to prove to them that kinesiology worked, that it would be the coolest thing in the world. So he made sure that the parents were around, and he got one of the kids, and Blaze was pretty good at it in those days, because he would just get a really good lock, and he would get someone to say, my name is now Max, my name is now Ella. And of course, if it was Max, then Max would lock and Ella would unlock. So then Blaze got so good that he would actually ask them to take on the energy of the other person. So he would actually get them to be a surrogate. And then he would see the opposite thing, muscle test up with the thing. So the parents were just like, oh my God, I don't know about this kid. So, but they couldn't explain it, you know. So if you can get a 10-year-old to do it, you can get anyone to do it. And really the worst thing about us as adults is that we think too much. You know, we just think too much. You know, so because we've all got our own crap, you know, we've all got our, I'm not good enough. I'm not energetic enough. I don't feel, okay. So I've always said that I don't feel like I've got a spiritual bone in my body. Obviously, I know that's not true, but it's sort of, it comes out of my mouth regularly, even though I don't really believe it. But obviously I'm not as spiritually bent as Eve, you know, like quite 2 different kinesiology spectrums. It doesn't mean that we both don't get really good results. You know, it's sort of like, and Judy, you know, working through the book, you know, like, hey, we've all been there, done that. That's exactly, you know, when I worked on that girl with the scoliosis, whose scoliosis was at 18%, I literally had the book there and I just worked through it bit by bit, step by step by step by step by step by step. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And her spine is still amazing. You know, that would be 20 years ago. She would now be, it would be 25 years ago now, because she was one of my very first NOT people who I did with the scoliosis. And, you know, we had the girl on the other night whose mother had had the spinal operation, and she was like, what did she say? 5, 6, 7 centimeters taller after the operation. But we used to do the same thing in NOT training. You would actually measure someone before the NOT, and then you would measure them at the end. And if people had a scoliosis, quite often they were taller at the end of the scoliosis treatment, because you're literally uncurving a spine. Yes, uncurving. Yeah, Judy?
So my son Matthew had a damaged hip when he was a baby. So we didn't know what he was going to do. Yes. Well, what's happened is when he got to about 14, they drilled out his good knee, the left one, to slow it down because there was a 33 mil difference. So he got a hip replacement on the right side for his 21st birthday. Walked out of the hospital on his birthday with a new hip. So when I told him about that mother getting so much height, he went, yes, maybe I can catch up to Dad with my height. When can we do that? Just the scoliosis. He is like quite pronounced, but he's, you know, getting by. But yeah, he's always been really gnarly because he missed out on an extra inch.
Yeah, right.
So he says, how close can we get, Mum?
Yeah. No, well, it is really
day.
interesting because you can imagine when you start looking at people, and I mean, I don't do this a lot standing up, but if you actually look at people, you can often see whether or not their eyes are even, whether or not one ear is higher than the other, whether or not one shoulder is higher than the other. You know, even lying on the back, you can see whether, you know, one shoulder is, you know, forward, or whether the hips are rotated, or whether or not the feet, you know, where are they lying on the table is one, you know. So there's so many little hints, or how the arms are just lying. Are they rotating evenly, or is one more inward than the other one? So there's all these little hints that the body gives us of where tension is in the body.
What were you saying about, this came up last night, you know how you said you were doing a treatment on someone and then their feet were moving?
Yes, so that was in a counselling kinesiology treatment with Gordon Dixon. So as he was doing the emotional stress release, and she was telling her big long story, I was seeing that her feet were moving, because different parts of the story of that trauma were activating different gates. Because some of them are about standing your ground, some of them are about being fight, some of them about being flight. So, you know, as you're telling your story and you're supporting your emotional stress release points, energetically, your body is going through it again.
So when I was working on my friend last night, I hadn't mentioned any of this to her, but as I was doing the healing, because I can always feel where the energy's going and it's moving through the body. And she said, oh, my feet are moving back and forth by themselves. They were just moving.
Oh,
and
that's
I was
so
like,
cool.
oh, okay. But it's just funny that happened to her. And I thought, yeah, that's just spirit confirming what you were saying, because it's like her feet were actually moving this time, because they don't normally do that. So that was
another coincidence. Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I had the same thing when I watched a video of yours, actually, Madonna. I think I put
Yeah.
a comment in the comment section. You were doing a surrogate, a healing on a student, I think it was, for somebody else, and my body started popping and twerking and all sorts of things. It was just, you know, it was like I was coming into alignment. It was bizarre.
It's amazing, isn't it? I never understood the whole ASMR thing, you know, but the amount of people who, like in the Awesome Energy Healers, there's a couple of guys in there who have really big PTSD, and they're probably watching this. So, hey guys, I won't say your names, but hello. And, you know, because of, well, lots and lots and lots of trauma. And the amount of times people let me know that they just either fall asleep because their body just totally relaxes when they're watching the treatments, or some people just sob. You know, it just really triggers something within their subconscious that makes their nervous system totally let go of something. And that's probably what's going on, Mark. You know, your body is actually starting to release some of that deep held stuff that can get stuck in that body tissue.
Something interesting I found was with EMR therapy that one of my friends has done for a long time, because she's got a lot of very like deep trauma stuff that she's had to work through with the you know, the psychologists do it, and the psychiatrists, the EMDR, which is the rapid eye movement therapy.
Yep.
And she would have, like, I think like you were saying, when you get flattened by the treatment, she would have this, after a session, just, it would wipe her out, and she'd have this, like, it was intense emotionally, and she'd go through this huge sort of upheaval, and it was very hard to fit around her life because of, and then she found, like, when I was doing the energy work with her, she'd feel similar effects from the energy work, only she felt like the energy helped her to feel a lot more balanced afterwards. And then so we had this discussion, and I said it was interesting how it was almost like I was doing the same thing as the EMDR person, only the energy component was helping to balance her body more. But I said, well, the EMDR therapist is moving energy. She just doesn't know that she's moving energy, but it's like,
Yeah, right.
it's still energy work. It's just coming at it from a different process.
Yeah.
But obviously a lot was moving from the EMDR, but a lot was also moving from the energy work. And
what does EMDR stand for?
I don't know what it stands for.
Eye movement desensitization.
Oh, yeah, right.
And resensitization.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I just thought I'd mention that because it was like what you were saying about people work differently, but it's still, and I still see it as energy work, because even for me, if I have a conversation with someone or even just a client, I can feel energy moving as we're talking about things. We're still moving energy. It's just that we're not deliberately saying to people, oh, we're doing energy work. But like if you go and massage someone, you're still moving energy. You're just not telling them that you're doing energetic healing, right? But you're still moving energy. So it's all, it's still moving stuff. It's just different techniques to move it.
Totally. And even, and that's sort of what I love about the central and governing meridian, that, so the one that basically is the two meridians that the celestial circuit's connected to, because even just by bringing those two back into balance, we're moving energy around the body, and any moving energy around the body has the ability to shift all sorts of other things. So with the chakras, for example, every chakra area, say the crown chakra. So if our crown chakra isn't working very well, then we're more likely to be able to take on other people's crap. In it goes. We feel like, so you have a conversation with someone and all of a sudden you just feel like they felt. And you go, this isn't my stuff. Once again, this is where the flower essences come in handy. So for the sensitive brackies out there, it's good to have some flower essences up your sleeve, because you can, squirt when stressed, just to diffuse some of that, layering of stuff. That third eye chakra, that's all about conscious thinking. And actually my last guy, we were talking earlier on in the week about those, the 4 layers of consciousness, so the first layer, you're in bliss because you're unconsciously incompetent. The second layer is when you're in a bit of pain because you're consciously incompetent. You know what you don't know and you're conscious of it. That really sucks. And then the next area, you're consciously competent. So you're doing well. You're conscious of it, but it's not unconscious yet. So it's still work, but it's definitely feeling better than the pain of the second level, but you're consciously competent. And then the fourth layer is the unconsciously competent, when you just know your stuff and off you go and you just do it easily. Well, he said, and maybe some of you have heard this before, but he said above that is super consciousness. So the universal intelligence, which is sort of akin to Eve's gifts, with the clairvoyance and that sort of thing. So it's sort of like that whole next level again. And I went, oh, I like that. I thought I'll steal that. Thank you very much. Because I really, because sometimes when you're in the middle of a balance and you can't think what to do, just ask source. Okay, give me guidance, and whenever I work, if you've seen any of my balances, part of what I do is this. Someone taught me that 1,000,000 years ago, so I just have my hand, when I have a hand free, that's sort of just asking for guidance. It's just a little trick I have. It's sort of like it's just really about opening myself up to any and all guidance that can come in and help me during the balance. And actually, I haven't even thought about that in like 20 years. It's been a long time I've been doing it, and I haven't thought about what it was until this moment. So someone told me to do that years ago. And I was Reiki'd one night at a course. There was a lady there who was a Reiki master, and she attuned me that night. And after that, people who had Reiki could feel me Reikiing them during the healings. I can't feel it. You know, so whatever that energy is, I must be doing it. I'm in bliss with that one. It's unconsciously incompetent. I don't know what's going on, but apparently it just happens sometimes. Or maybe I'm up the top. I don't know. But you know,
think
I'm
I've
in bliss
noticed
with it either way.
I've noticed some people are a lot more sensitive to feeling energy than other people. So if I'm sitting with someone at a table and I can feel healing energy coming through, I have to stop. Some people will feel it really strongly. Other people may not feel as much because there could be many reasons for that. But there are some people, like I had this girl who didn't even know what energy healing was. And then we did an energy healing, it was just by distance, and she could feel all this energy moving, and it was this revelation to her because she didn't even know energy healing existed. And then she was feeling energies all the time after that. So some people, they're just open, you know, and so that's what I find. It really varies. And I just tell people, if you don't feel anything, it's like, don't worry, you might feel stuff, because sometimes they might feel things and then they don't know what's going on because I didn't warn them, you know, in the first. So.
And, you know, sort of one of the first times that I actually felt energy for the first time was when I was doing Touch for Health and I was running the gallbladder meridian. And it was on Linda. Of course it was on Linda. You know, she's my only human I've ever worked on. So she's only joking. But she was lying on the table and I, of course, as you do, I had my book on her abdomen and I'm running her gallbladder meridian, which of course goes, you know, does this curly thing around the head and then it comes down the side and it goes down the feet. So, of course, I'm sort of, you can imagine this, her abdomen. So I'm like doing this thing, gallbladder, going to the thing. And I could feel that every time I went over the book, like I wasn't consciously aware I could feel the energy of the gallbladder meridian until I started noticing that as I was going over the book, I didn't feel something. So I wasn't even aware I was feeling it here or down here until all of a sudden I went, hang on. So then, of course, I started doing it over and over again because I was enjoying myself. And then she started feeling really sick because I overactivated her gallbladder. Yeah. So don't do that. Yeah. So that was sort of the first meridian that I was ever fully aware of. So in the same way, the first time I was aware of feeling energy was that time with that guy who had the gallbladder operation and Gordon was doing the figure eights on the scar, you know, and then I felt nauseous and I, you know, sort of said, oh my God, is anyone else feeling hot and icky? But it was because of the energy moving. So, you know, they're my first two experiences actually feeling energy in two different ways. Has anyone never felt energy? No, so everyone's quite, yeah. Yeah, Judy?
Have you ever had to refuse somebody because you just don't blend with their mojo and you don't want to?
Those people don't tend to come back. I had one guy once who was a doctor and he was a real arrogant turdy bupper, and he sort of he came in and he was in heaps of pain, and I wrote really good notes in those days. I suck more these days, but I wrote really good notes in these days. So by the time he came back the second time and he said, and he did that whole arrogant thing, oh, there's been no change. And I said, oh, really? I said, that's unusual. So I went to my notes. I said, so are you still getting headaches 4 or 5 times a week? Oh, no, I haven't had a headache in weeks. I said, oh, okay. I said, are you still, like, is your back pain still a 5 out of 10, like 80% of the day? Oh, no, I've been getting a back pain at nighttime in bed. Oh, okay. So I just started going through all of my notes and every single one had improved. And I said to him, so obviously there's something that you think hasn't shifted. What hasn't shifted? And I can't remember what it was, but there was something that was really irritating him that had not moved. So that thing was the thing he focused on. He forgot about everything else. And don't forget, that's what people do. That is a really natural human reaction. He probably wasn't a turd. It just felt like it to me. But, you know, it sort of was like, it was one of those learnings where you go, right. That's just it's a natural reaction to sort of forget about what disappears, because once it's gone, it's gone. You don't even think about those things. So that's.
Do you remember Ross Smith with?
Oh,
sorry,
yes.
do you remember Ross Smith with Linda?
Sure do.
He would trick us and he'd go, take us back and say, okay, and he'd look at his book and he'd say, okay, back to the date of the previous treatment. And how does that feel now? And you go, put it back.
Exactly. And that is part of the fun of kinesiology. If some of you who do kinesiology have never done it, that is a great trick. So you can actually ask your body to time track. So, and I do that, especially when I've got skeptics, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
I'm waiting for
skeptics I love
someone to
doing
ask
it
me,
too.
and I don't quite know how to say we're incompatible politely, but I'm waiting.
Yeah, right.
It's too close,
How do you
and
Yeah,
too
but
much
that might
skepticism.
not work if you are working on people who are too, who are very close. Yeah. Maybe,
We'll see how we go.
maybe you could blame it on yourself. Maybe I'm too close to you. I don't trust my muscle testing with you.
Mm,
And that
mm.
way you're not putting it on that person. You're putting it back
Yep.
on yourself, and that could give you a nice out.
Yes, we need it. We're not doing that one.
just say
There's
that
just no.
you feel that they will benefit from someone who's more objective, that they'll get a clearer read, because they don't know anything about them. You can say that.
Yeah, no, I don't want to ever put myself in electrical contact with this human.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, antagonist
No,
for
I don't
30 years. Let's not.
Interesting. Yeah, no,
Yes.
I had I can literally think of one guy about 28 years ago who I never wanted to see again, and I ended up doubling my price for him.
Yeah.
So for a start, I said no, I'm not doing 2-hour appointments anymore, and because of my new residence, I have to charge this amount now, and he stopped coming. That worked.
Madonna, I don't know if how other kinesiologists work, but we were always taught to ask permission to work on the person before we actually start working. And it hasn't happened to me, but I know a colleague of mine that it has happened to, where she's asked permission and the permission has been no. So even though this person has made the appointment to see her, it just has been no. So then the next question is normally, is there anything that we can do now to change this response? And her answer that she got from the muscle testing was still no. So in that case, she just actually had to say to him, look, this is not, for some reason, your our energies are not connecting, and please can I refer you to somebody else?
Yeah, see, I suppose because I start with survival stuff every time, because survival stuff doesn't want to shift. So if you're asking, it depends on the question. Once again, where in the brain are you asking the permission? Are you asking the permission of the survival pattern that wants to keep this pain pattern because the pain pattern is keeping them alive or safe or angry or frustrated or, like what part of the brain are you actually asking? So if you calm down a survival pattern, so yeah, I think with PKP, that was sort of something I learned in PKP as well, was a list of questions, at the beginning before you got started, that was sort of what you did and got permission for all those parts of the self. But yeah, I think since I've done the survival work and psychological reversal as well, because the unconscious brain really doesn't want to change. Like the Moro reflex, I had another sort of thing about that Moro reflex. One of my girls, she started doing the Moro reflex, and all of a sudden she couldn't get out of bed. She could feel her body fighting doing that exercise every time she went to do it. And she knew that it was a sabotage by her body in relation to that Moro reflex. She just knew it. So the brain will try to keep patterns that are stopping us from getting out of our comfort zone. So because of that, I'd be sort of going, oh, well, let's move some shit.
How do you do this time tracking, Madonna? That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually, because pretty much like towards the end of a balance, especially with a skeptic, so just say at the beginning of the balance, someone's got a huge gait with the feet. So, lying on the back, feet coming in. I go, oh, look at your gait, look at this foot. It's so much higher than the left. And usually they're lying on the table. And I say, have a look at your feet. And they go, to have a look. So, and then by the end of the balance, it's usually pretty clear. But the ones who go, oh, yeah, it must have been, I mustn't have known what you were doing at the beginning. And I go, oh, okay, so let's go back to the beginning then, shall we? Whoop. And it'll, so you just ask the body to go back to a time. And sometimes I'll ask the body to go back to the worst gate it's ever been stuck in. So, you know, sometimes, or go back to the time when the scoliosis was formed, or go back to the time when the jaw was formed. So, because if someone comes in with something specific, then you can actually ask the body just to go back to the time when that was the worst. And that way you're dealing with all of the worst stuff at that time. So it's going to be a bigger balance. Just ask. But yeah, it is great, especially structural stuff. That's good fun to see. I love that.
Madonna, what's the thing that you do when you sort of flex the foot?
See you later, Chantel. Bye, hun.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Hey, no worries.
That's the adrenal reset, I think you're asking about, where she pushes the feet.
Yeah,
When
so
you
that's the flexor hallucis longus.
pull one foot
Yep.
down, you've got the arm on lock. Is that something
Yes.
to do with stages of stress?
Yes.
That-
So that's the adrenal. So that's the flexor hallucis longus, the big toe muscle. But it's not just the big toe muscle, of course. It actually hooks in. So once again, imagine the foot, leg, butt here. So it sort of attaches at the tip of the toe. It comes in underneath the ankle, and it actually hooks in behind the knee. So that's a long, skinny muscle. It's the one involved in all the feet problems that people are having these days, of course. You know, so it's one of the major ones. And because it's the big toe, it's that, once again, the big toe is one of the most important structural balancing muscles we have. So, but it's also the first muscle to switch on with adrenaline. So when we're running on stress, once again, the feet are ready to go. They're ready to either stand our ground or ready to get out that door or get up that tree, whatever we have to do, or fight, you know, whatever. So basically, yeah, so that's a PNF stretch, a hypertonic stretch. So any muscle in the body, you can pull back to its full flexion, and then you get the person to breathe in and breathe out and push. So breathe in, breathe out and push. You can do it for joints, you can do it for muscles, you can do it for knees, you can do it for all sorts of things. You can do it for the whole pelvis, you can do it for the whole shoulder girdle, you can do
So
it for the
that's
whole
to
skull.
reset it. Is it to any muscle you can reset with that?
Yes. So basically the whiplash is basically, that's what that is. So in one of the reconnections for these little guys at the front, the anterior neck flexors, is to, so breathe in, breathe out and push down. Breathe in, breathe out and push down. So you're actually doing a PNF stretch on a whole group of muscles when you're doing that. And that's why, you know, so for the neck, you can sort of go in this direction. Breathe in, breathe out and push. Breathe in, breathe out and push. So PNF stretching is amazing. So with hypertonic, so once again, with first, second, third layers of stress, in Touch for Health, when muscles are unlocking, that's either first or third layer of stress. So generally, if it unlocks and you go and hold some ESRs and you rub a neurolymphatic point and it locks, that was just a first layer of stress. That's a piece of cake. But how often do you get a muscle that you do everything in the damn page and it still doesn't lock at the end? It doesn't happen very often because most muscles want to work. But occasionally there will be such trauma or something in a muscle that it's in third layer of stress. You know, for whatever, whether it's the muscle, whether it's the organ associated with the muscle, whether it's the emotions associated with the meridian associated with the muscle associated with the organ, you know, there's, you know, until you start working it back, you know, and working out what it is. And sometimes if you have a really, really chronic thing, you might actually have to do something survival pattern in relation to that muscle to get them back there again as well. But yeah, the PNF stretching is great, Tracy. I just love it. You know, hypertonics. Yeah.
How do you test muscles when you're doing distance? Without
once again, I just energetically do it. So that's why I prefer having a physical human if I'm doing a structural balance. But once again, I will just, I constantly check the alarm points. So when I'm doing my etheric distance healings, because I can, so all the alarm points work on different organs, so governing central lung, sex, heart, stomach, large intestine, bladder, small intestine, triple heater, gallbladder, liver, spleen, pancreas, kidneys. So when you touch each one, and once again, etherically, so, I'm intentionally testing those and then seeing which one unlocks. Actually, all I do is look at them, because I can't do both because I don't have a human. So, so I'll just be energetically looking at the different alarm points as I'm going through the etheric body and seeing which one unlocks. That then gives me an indication about the muscles, because I know the muscles associated with the alarm point and the organ. So, but yeah, etherically, obviously, generally, I'm more likely to go the neurolymphatics, the neurovasculars, the meridians, all the
So
stuff.
if you had to reset a muscle etherically, would you ask the person to sort of do it on themselves?
Yeah, sometimes I do that, so like especially if they have to wake up the next day and do it and they're not actually there on a Zoom with me, then I'll say, okay, so what I want you to do is grab your arm and just give it a, little bit of a tweak into the joint, and then give it a bit of a, so yeah, I do give people some little instructions sometimes. Yeah, Marianne.
The survival stuff that you do, is that part of the courses that you run, or is it something separate?
Yeah, so okay. I'm doing some basic stuff in the first round, the competent kinesiology, and there's a whole bunch more in the 15-month training. Yeah, so the signature system is 15 months, and every week there's a But yeah, there will be some in there. It'll honestly, it will depend on who's in that initial course, because that's going to drive it. If I have people who are, who have one set of skills, I'm not going to bother teaching stuff that people know, so I'll make sure it's really targeted to the people that are in there, because it's me.
So is the first course targeted to people who haven't done kinesiology?
No, it's whatever level they're at. So it's basically to give people the basic big skills that they need to go into the signature system. So if people have all of those skills, and then just wait till the signature starts.
Is it sorry, go, Marianne.
Sorry, Madonna, would you then recommend that we have that discussion with you first, so that you can assess what we need?
Exactly. So that's why I'm offering the 20-minute, chat, so that we can get in there and have a discussion about, where you're at, what you're after, where you want to go. Exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Any other thoughts? I do love this, I love my structural stuff, and I love combining it with, quite often I just find myself, because I like doing two things at once, because I've got a bit of a busy brain. So I sort of like, for me, giving really good value during a treatment, but it happens quite subconsciously. So I will be, holding the little point on the shoulder, which is the circuit retaining mode. So I'll be stacking in their energy. I'll be tapping the brain, tapping the heart. I'll be checking their chakras while they're telling me their story, and I'm stacking it in. I'll be doing a chakra. I'll be running a meridian. It's sort of like, it's really easy to get into a flow. Once again, it depends where you are on the little doodad. Where are we all sitting? So the more conscious we become of things, and, like Eve was saying, especially initially, you've got to practice on people. And it was funny, I had a moment today, one of the girls there who's a molecular biologist, she's been working with the jabs now for 2 years, like actual vials of the jabs, and they're really toxic. So she gets brain fog all the time, and her blood has been horrific for 2 years. But she's a molecular biologist, so she's putting her money where her mouth is. She's like, well, we've got to know what's going on. So I was actually, after lunch, she was saying that she's just had brain fog for 2 years. And so I was going to put a corpus callosum back together. And you know what stopped me? She was wearing heels for a start. She was already about a foot taller than me. So I was sort of I was trying to imagine standing there and sort of, because she's so tall, I would have been muscle testing up here. I would have had to have had my feet apart and do my feet together, feet apart things so that I could stack. I ended up just deciding it was too jolly hard, because I thought, oh man, I'm going to look so ridiculous trying to stack this in when she's right. Anyway, so it was really funny that I really should have done it for her, poor darling, because it would have been 5 minutes of my time, you know, and it would have helped her brain work a bit better. But, you know, she's a molecular biologist. I didn't want to feel like a twat either. She's definitely the smartest girl in the room today. It was very interesting. Oh, man, so there were some egos flying around yesterday. Fun times, fun times. Not me, I was fine. I'm happy being where I am. I'm happy not being a molecular biologist. Who wants to be there? Not me. Yeah.
Madonna, where do you think do you have any sense of where the field is going? Like, from your experience, because you've been doing this a long time, you know, and I've spoken to different people over the years who are in different parts of, whether it's more in the psychology, counseling, or the actual health side, or kind of, you know, because a lot of us is sort of mix these things together in a way. Like, kinesiology is a bit of a mix across, you know, physical and emotional and mental.
Yeah.
So
where do you think kinesiology is going?
Well, kinesiology, but also the naturopathy, like just the general natural medicine, you know.
It's such a shame. Natural therapies have gone downhill because the TGA got involved. Here in Australia, the Therapeutic Goods Association got involved. We've talked so much about live blood the last few days. Metagenics, one of the companies in Australia, they spent $500,000 on a study about, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and basically proved how accurate live blood was in comparison to all sorts of parameters in the blood. So the TGA said, oh, well, that's fantastic. Doctors can use it, but naturopaths can't. But you can do a $2 million study, and then naturopaths can go back to using it. So everything's about money these days. Naturopaths, probably for a good 10 years, naturopathy's been taken over by Big Pharma. They don't teach any sensible stuff these days. They don't teach about, like, the thinning of the eyebrows being a thyroid sign. They don't talk about thinning of the hair being a thyroid sign. They don't talk about the shape of the fingers. They don't talk about signs on the fingernails. They don't talk about tongue modality. They don't talk about, you know, and once again, with the ongoing groups, anyone who joins me, I'm happy to cover anything, because, man, there's a lot of information in here. And we need, you know, if it doesn't get shared, what good is it?
You mean the modern naturopathy courses?
Oh, it's shocking. So about 10 years ago, one of the big universities in Sydney that trains naturopaths started getting over $200,000 a year to teach. Sorry, I know there'll be a lot of pro-jab people out there, and that's fine, but naturopathy is about natural immunity. The Rockefeller system is about avoiding anything natural. So basically about 10 years ago, they started teaching that vaccines were a natural part of natural therapies. But they did it for the 200 grand a year that they got bought by.
And that was one of the other reasons why the TGA banned any natural therapies being used in private health. The only thing you can claim for is a massage. You can no longer claim for
I lost
kinesiology, any of those things.
I lost 6 natural therapies I'd had for 25 years.
Correct. And it was all about money, because they did not want people going and spending on natural remedies.
And honestly, that's also what's given me the impetus to start training, because money and control, 100%. I've just got to that spot where part of me doesn't believe in qualifications anymore either, part of me. Because what is a qualification? You pay a license to someone. APRA is our head regulatory body in Australia for the medical system. And they get hundreds of dollars per year. They never pay tax. They're a private organisation. They were created in 2014. They've made millions of dollars, and they're basically an illegal enterprise. So I told my brother, the doctor, that at Christmas time, and guess what his response was? Well, I hope that's not true, because I pay them shitloads of money. And I'm like, how about the fact that they're an illegal corporation? How about the fact that they're not about health? They're about, anyway. So it makes me crazy. So that's part of what's given me the impetus to just get out there and go blow it. I just want to train people, so it's going to be a fun year. Yeah.
Don't you also feel that given how things have been in the last couple of years, that the general public are now beginning to look at alternative methods to try and improve their health, because they are losing
Faith?
Those that had trust
Yeah.
are losing trust
Yeah.
and are looking for alternatives, because clearly what has been thrown down their throats for the last 3 years is not. Well,
You're
you've
being
only got
so polite, aren't you, Deb?
I'm trying to be like, the classic is somebody who isn't injected, and I don't have a view one way or the other. Okay, it's with regards to anyone who doesn't live in Australia. You have no idea how much that it was pushed on people here and what people had to go through. Don't get me wrong, I know they were mandated throughout the rest of the world, but not to the point that they were in Australia.
Oh my God, Jen, I think your man was worse than ours.
Are you in Canada?
So, my brother can.
They need lots of healings needed. Lots of healing needed.
Lots of healing. But Mark, you're absolutely right. So what I've been doing with the immune system for the past 2 years has been checking in relation to any and all strains of coronaviruses, any and all strains of manipulated synthetic, because a lot of the stuff we're finding out helps with coronaviruses, because they do exist, probably. They probably exist.
Naturally.
So probably. But a lot of the nutrients that help to break them down, like quercetin and N-acetylcysteine and things, they help to break the backbone of both synthetic and natural viruses. So there's some really good study going on.
Can you test for the elimination then? Can you, say somebody starts up here, can you, over time, can you see whether or not they're actually getting rid of the spike?
Because the first step is getting the body to recognize things. So I usually stack in a bunch of immune system stuff. So with NOT, there's an immune system protocol that I use, which will be in one of the courses. But basically, it's a really nice, neat little protocol to see how much of the immune system is not working for those things and waking it up. And there's an energy mismatch thing as well. Energy mismatch means your body has no idea what to do with it. So with energy mismatch, it's like it's like a ping pong whizzing around creating damage, but your body can't get rid of it because it doesn't recognize it. And that definitely seems to be what's going on in people, having looked at blood for 2 days of all these people.
Well, I found one of my friends has always used homeopathy for viruses when she's been sick. And it works really well for her because they're plant poisons. So they always push it out of her system really quickly. But she got very sick a year or so ago from work. And a boss came in and they had a virus, but had tested apparently negative for COVID on the rapid antigen. But then the boyfriend went and got tested in the PCR and it came up positive. But my friend got this terrible thing, and she said it felt like Frankenstein virus because none of her homeopathy was working. It's almost it just didn't even. So she said it's definitely not a natural virus because normally her homeopathy will do something for every type of thing that she has. But it's just like it just wasn't even on the same, like an alien thing,
And because these days, and it was interesting once again having a molecular biologist in the room. Thanks, Deb. See you later, sweetie. It was interesting having a molecular biologist in there because the whole concept, do viruses exist? She sequences viruses. She sequences fungi. She sequences bacteria. This is what she does for a living. She runs a autism clinic. So her whole life is sequencing stuff, looking at DNA, looking at genetics, and trying to help people get back to health. She's got 2 autistic kids, both fully recovered little decent human beings. You'll love this too. Unless you like the climate change stuff. But anyway, so her son is 16 years old, and he was told that he had to do an assignment. They were given an assignment to do where they had to do it on the meat industry, but they had no choice but to do it on the emotions that the animals were feeling. It had to be from a pro-vegetarian perspective. So he wrote it on happy cows in organic things and, put it all together with all his stuff. And she said, no, you have to do it from this other perspective. He was not allowed to do it from any perspective other than the climate change, cows fart, we got to stop eating meat thing. So she just thought that was pretty interesting. And this little Aspie kid who was very focused on the truth and not what she wanted him to tell was very interesting. Anyway.
Well, now that we're signed up to this net zero thing by Albanese, which I got an email about from my local member today, I thought, okay, wonder what this is going to do to our natural therapies. They're going to come up with some excuse that we've got too many carbon emissions coming from these natural products. So
it's going to be interesting really moving forward, totally. And I think, Eve, moving forward in the natural healing space, that's why hands-on healing is going to be so important, because they can't take that away from us. Like I was talking about urine therapy a couple of nights ago. Who knows what we'll end up having to do if we're locked away, but they can't take away our hands-on healing. I think it's going to be very important moving forwards. Yeah.
Do you think they'll turn around and turn it back into witchcraft?
Oh, it already is.
Well, yeah, I know.
It does. It is amazing that doctors still say there's absolutely no, because the chick who got, the head of the AMA who was vax damaged, and so was her wife, whatever her name is, Karen Phelps. She was top of the AMA for like 10 years, 12 years, something like that. But I remember she was the one who started the witch hunt against naturopaths. And she spoke at Metagenics about 5-6 years ago, and I was so peeved.
There was a
really
group
didn't
called
go because
Friends
of it. I was
of
so
Science.
angry. Sorry?
Friends of Science.
Oh, man.
Which apparently Norman Swan is connected to.
Oh, that does not surprise me.
I don't know for sure.
Oh, my God. I think he still was saying that the vaccine didn't leave the muscle, like 3 months ago. Bloody idiot. Yeah, very interesting. One of my clients left today and said, oh, well, thank God we don't have to wear a mask anymore. And I said, it never worked.
I know. It's really hard working on people that are so blind, because you got to bite your tongue, and you're like, when they leave, you're just like, oh my God.
Can you tell I'm not very good at biting my tongue? That's why they don't come back, Judy. That's what you have to do.
Well, it's hard because as soon as one thing in their model of reality unravels, then they have to go and question everything else. And it's very traumatic. So especially if it's...
Do you think that's happening though?
People
not enough, Mark.
I can see little cracks appearing. And
I had a guy on the table the other day, and he's very much mainstream normie, but he knows I've got I've been treating him forever, so he knows I've got all sorts of opinions about lots of stuff. And he mentioned Buzz Aldrin the other day and about the moon landing, and I said, "Oh, did they land on the moon?" He said, "What? That's not a conspiracy too, is it?" I said, "Oh, I just spent 5 minutes looking up that one. Have a look, see what you can find." He won't. He loves the moon landing. I go, okay. Because for me, the information has been drip filtered out for 3 years. It's just been like one thing after another, whereas people still can't see 3 years of stuff because they're still blind to it. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's really hard because then some people, like they find out that they've done this to themselves, or, they've done it to their children. And it's really hard emotionally. Then you're dealing with that too, I'm finding. So it's really, really hard.
Imagine the anger though when everybody wakes up. This mass formation psychosis comes to an end, and all of a sudden everyone wakes up and goes, "Oh, holy cow! We not only have been duped. This was a scenario." I'm curious because the reason I came, partly the reason I started looking to kinesiologists, because I got tested remotely via kinesiology for a range of viruses, fungi, bacteria, this, that, and the other, so that I could be given some programs to put into a Rife machine.
Oh, nice. Yep.
Great. Yeah. So I know you mentioned bioresonance.
Yes.
Use bioresonance.
Yeah.
So do you think there'll be? I mean, and in one of the programs actually is you can run a COVID vaccine program on the Rife machine that I have, and I've done that, and I've created holographic labels that you can stick on.
Nice.
So
yeah,
my
yeah.
mum and dad
Yep.
are highly skeptical of it all. I can create a little sticker, just stick it on an item of clothing.
Yep.
And I think you know what you were talking before about surrogacy and you know, treating etherically at a distance and things like that. I thought it'd be interesting just to see whether or not I can test whether or not the programs that I've got
Exactly. You absolutely can. So I've
be able to
created
work.
in my bioresonance,
Yeah.
I've created about 100 programs, or maybe it's only 50, whatever, it takes a bit of time to create them. But yeah, I've got spike protein detox, I've got, you know, COVID, I've got heart brain toxin detox and things like that. So yeah, I often muscle test up, you know, which program when people are in here on the table. I often have them running simultaneously. Absolutely. But David Nixon's having really good success with the Rife technology, you know, so he's you know, he was a mainstream doctor 18 months ago. It's so amazing. I think it's about a year since I met him. Literally the day I met him was the day he met someone who believed in chemtrails for the first time, and he didn't think they were crazy because they had documentation. So I met him the day he had his mind open to chemtrails. So it's yeah, he's
Do you think we'll ever get beyond this place in time where everything's so threatening and worrying, and you know, you feel like, you know, that your whole history has just been a lie?
Yeah.
Everything that we've ever been taught and learned. And
yeah. And I was chatting to him last week, and that's exactly what he said. He said, it sucks at the moment. He said, you think about 9/11, you think about the moon landing, and I said, and you think about the Titanic, and he said, what about the Titanic? Well, you know, a whole bunch of bankers got off it, you know, like within 24 hours of it
big
going
insurance
down.
payout.
And he went, what? So go check out your rabbit hole. Yeah. Go see who didn't get onto the Titanic and see who's running America. Yeah.
It feels like we're carrying the burden, though. That's the problem, and you know, it needs more people to wake up. But
that's why you got to do it with fun. You know, so when we're muscle testing, absolutely. And I've never actually thought about muscle testing to help people wake up. I sort of do some etheric world ones occasionally with that sort of idea in mind, and just sort of trying to open up the energy of the earth to be open to new information and ideas, and to release I call it the satanic energy, to release the satanic energy, you know, because they can't hide in darkness when light is shone on them.
I was asking all that through COVID. I kept saying to Spirit, what can I do? Because, you know, I was trying to share information on Facebook and things, but I got to the point, and then my guidance was saying, you can't push anything on anyone. You can't really, and it's not your responsibility to. So I said, well, what can I do? And it was, the answer I got was just pray for people to see the truth, to be connected to that, and to receive the truth, because the light is the truth, right? But it's like for that to switch on for them, because they've got to find it for themselves.
Yeah, and I think one of the realizations that I had was that the only way all this works for me in my mind is believing that there's another place. So the babies that die in birth, the babies, you know, the die off of babies on the planet, I have to believe that they have come here on the earth to shine a light on the evil going on, because otherwise it's just too horrendous for my brain. So that's my belief. I believe that there's another place where all these little souls have gone, okay, I've shone my light, you know, it's time for someone else now. So that's the way I'm getting by. And it sort of was funny when I was in Italy last year, because I was in so many of these beautiful old churches and there were baby cherubs everywhere. And my brain went, why are there so many dead babies in all these churches? And I'd never thought of them as dead babies before, but they're up there as little angels. I thought, man. Yeah, anyway, it sort of did give me a bit of a... So that's the only reason I'm getting through this, because I have to believe that there's another space. And I have to believe that people are choosing their path, and the people who have chosen the path, they've chosen it. They've made the choice. Because here in Australia, no one had a gun to their head. As far as I know, there were no guns to the head most of the places around the world. There might have been all sorts of corruption and, you know, evil things, but
even people who said to me, oh, you're lucky you didn't have to have the jab for this or for that. And I felt like saying, well, neither did you. I mean,
Yeah.
you chose to keep going to work at the gym when you had to get the jab. You could have just said, oh, I'm going to take 6 months off and go and do something else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Of course, it's annoying, but it was almost that thing of everyone had to decide what their threshold was.
And honestly, the
Mhm.
excuses people gave me, I wanted to slap them. People saying I couldn't go to my art class. I couldn't go play bowls. I couldn't go to my card night. I couldn't go out, it was sort of like such inane stuff. Like,
Yeah.
come on, it's not going to be forever.
Yeah.
It's like
My
people
neighbor
go
said,
back
you're
home.
not going to be able to go out and eat. You don't want to
Yeah.
go out to the restaurants. And I'm like, I can cook. Like,
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing, the skill I have. Like,
Yeah.
and now he's been dealt with cancer. And so I haven't.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for these people.
It's awful.
They're told to do something and they immediately run out and they do it, and they don't even consider the consequences of their actions. But now they turn around and say, I had no choice. You always have a choice.
Yeah.
I think it's also, for me, the benefit of having had chronic illness before and knowing how debilitating it was, and then having recovered from that. It's like, for me, I wouldn't do anything that could potentially risk me going back to that.
Yeah.
Whereas people that have never really been sick in any kind of long-term or debilitating way, they would probably just take that for granted, and they wouldn't be thinking about it on the scale that I would think about it. So in a sense, that was a gift for me to have had that background of my own experience, because a lot of people haven't had that. So they just would, it would have been a very light decision for them of, oh yeah, it's fine, I trust it, whatever, and they wouldn't have thought any more about it.
Yeah. And like I've said, I was very, very lucky. Early on in 2020, my son, who was very, very awake already, started sending me stuff about coronaviruses and patenting it from 2015 and, all these times in the past. And the patent numbers that included 060606. And I'd look at him and I'd go, you freako, Bill Gates. Like, I was just mind-blowing, the evil that's connected with it all.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to see it. Oh, Fauci, let's not get started. His wife, the head of medical ethics. Oh, my God.
I hope no one shares this conversation on any.
No, I'll be cutting this bit off before the end. Definitely. This ain't getting on YouTube. Yeah, even it would get kicked off. So no, the last 20 will be gone. But anyway, yes.
So Madonna, how do we go about, like getting in on your courses and things like that?
Cool. So shoot me we'll set up some 20-minute conversations. So just send me a private message, say, whatever, and then we'll just make those happen. I'll send a time and we'll work out a time that works for people.
Okay.
Get that going.
Okay.
Beautiful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Any final thoughts?
Is your course going to be recognized by, because I know for me, like I had to when I had my with the college, was it IICT? I had to have a membership with them to, for my insurance or whatever it was. And so I had to send them the little certificates, and they were like, yeah, cool, I'll put you down for these modalities. But then sometimes, now that you can't get health fund rebates, it's really just for insurance. I really don't see there's any other
benefit.
Well, in terms of the qualification, unless you need to be a member of a particular thing, it's not. I wonder
part of what I've been thinking is, if you're a Reiki person, you can still charge $100 for a session. If you are a psychic, you can charge $100. Like, there's all these other things out there that people go along and pay all the time to see a psychic or a this or a that. So people are so hung up on laws and rules and stuff. And once again, all that's about money making.
Mm-hmm.
People just want to be healed.
It's true, actually. Insurance is expensive as well. Like, all of us that have to pay for insurance to have our public liability to work at a particular venue, for example, because they always ask us every year, we need your certificate. These insurance companies make a lot of money, and how many claims do they ever actually pay out is what I'd like to know.
Yeah,
So.
totally. But yeah, beautiful. It's been a wonderful week. Thank you all for such great conversations. And
Thank you.
sorry the technology
Thank you,
wasn't
Madonna.
working tonight,
Thank
but
you for your time.
chat to some of you soon about getting in on the on the training. That'll be good fun.
That's great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Okay.
everyone.
And I will on the Awesome Energy group, probably occasionally if I'm doing some live videos, I'll just put in times and things like that. So keep your eyes open for those, you know. I'll be
Okay.
there's a few little things
Awesome.
I've got up my sleeve. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Madonna.
Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Okay.
Good morning,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.